Thanks for tuning in, everybody. You've got Dan here with Five Wide Football. I'm asking everybody to hit the subscribe and the like. If you're listening to us on Anchor, write up a review, tell all your friends, hit us up on Twitter at Five Wide Football. And today we've got the Hub from, he's also got a Twitter and a YouTube. Great Giants YouTuber. Awesome videos. I'm going to be doing this monthly with him, the State of the Giants, we're calling it. So if you want to give a shout out to all your stuff, go right ahead.
Thank you, Dan. Wonderful intro, man. As he said, I am a Giants YouTube channel. Check me out if you want to on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. All the links will be somewhere. And make sure you guys hit up Dan's 5Y Football, Fantasy Football, both blog, Twitter, and YouTube account. They put out great fantasy football stuff. Make sure you sub him up and all that.
And I didn't give you as good of an intro as I have in the past. I just want to throw out, he spits out, and he was just telling me he's got finals week, so he's getting in there and editing videos at 6 a.m. He's spitting out 4 or 5 videos a week, and they're really on top of everything the Giants are doing. So if you see something that the Giants did and you want to get quick insights, chances are he's going to have some insight on it that day or the next day, what the Giants have done, and he's researching his stuff. It's not just off the cuff. He knows what he's talking about. That's why I love having him on the channel.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
All right, so obviously, State of the Giants. It's going to be a monthly thing.
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Because we got to get on both channels, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, the big one coming out here as I'm looking at this is the Giants' schedule came out. We got a tough one. I saw your video today where you're predicting 16-0.
Of course, man. Undefeated.
Obviously, he's joking a little bit there. I'm looking at the schedule, and just off my head, I see that DraftKings had us 2-14. Vegas has the over/under at 6.5. Watching some other YouTubers seeing around 7-8 wins. NFL.com has a simulator video they put out with the Giants at 6-10. And as I look, I think there's a real chance we could go 8-8. I'm quickly looking through the schedule. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a close game. I could see us winning that. They won a lot of close games, and they're really well coached. But I don't think that I think talent-wise, we're pretty close. I think we beat the Bears. We lose to the 49ers. I think the Rams is another toss-up. We're not going out there and beating Dallas this year. We beat the Redskins. We aren't beating the Eagles in Philly, but I think they're susceptible. I think we could beat them at home. Washington, I think we'd lose that. Beat Philly when we're at home. Coming off the bye, I hear people saying we're going to lose to the Bengals. First of all, I don't think the Bengals are that good.
That makes no sense to me at all, losing to the Bengals. Like, hands down, they were the worst team in football for a reason, people. There's a reason they got the number 1 overall pick. It wasn't just tanking. The only team that everybody knew was tanking for sure last year was the Dolphins, and they still didn't end up with the number 1 overall pick. That's how bad the Bengals were. You could, and I did this in my Scouts prediction video. I'm like, you break it down position by position. The only position they got over us that you could argue was wide receiver. That's about it.
I think that people just fall in love with because they play fantasy. Fantasy's getting so big that people fall in love with the fact that they got names. The Bengals got names, but I mean AJ Green didn't play at all last year.
AJ Green is what, 31?
31. Didn't play last year.
Oh, you want to talk about names? Geno Atkins, he's also probably on the last few years of his career. Maybe even this is the last year of his career.
Yep.
Who else you want? Of course, you could talk about the rookies. Joe Burrow. I think they got T. Higgins. They're rookies.
They're rookie. Yeah. No one knows what they're doing.
Although I will say Joe Burrow, I have a lot of faith in him. I think he will be a great quarterback in the league, but he's still a rookie nevertheless. I mean, come on, guys.
Yep. I 100% agree. So, and also, you do better after the bye. So I mean, as I look through, I see 8-8. What do you see?
So
And you've got a video in depth,
I'm
going more in depth. So
yeah. So like I'm kind of on the fence. In that vid, I think I ended up saying 7-9, but I was really torn between 6-10 and 7-9. The thing is, I can very realistically see the Giants ceiling being 10-6 and making it into the playoffs as a 7th, 6th seed. And the reason I didn't go with that is because that's me being like super
yep,
optimistic, the
yep.
most Giants of Giants fans, you know. And I don't want to. I want to be a little bit more on the realistic side. So I really do think 6-10, 7-9 is a go. But it's like the reason it's hard to predict schedule is because of momentum. Like Uncle Mo is a fickle guy. He could switch like, you know, like a light switch on and off just like that. We win a couple of games and we get the right momentum, we're in the playoffs. We lose a couple of games and momentum goes the wrong way. It's like we could very well end up going like 3-13 or something. It's just like that's so hard to predict. But I'm looking at it and I'm seeing 6-10, 7-9, and the games for sure that I think we should win. Redskins both times. We own the Redskins.
Yep.
For sure, I think we're gonna win at the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing is the reason I think that we win there is because if Trubisky is starting, without a doubt, I think we win.
Yeah.
But if Foles is starting by week 2, I think it's gonna be a bit closer and maybe it's a toss up. But I could see us winning at the Bears. I can see us. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't have a ton of faith in either quarterback, especially with probably a shortened practices in OTAs. So I don't care who they got. I think we beat the Bears either way. But
Fair point. Foles has a lot to prove with the contract that he has right now. So yeah, Redskins, Bears. I could see us winning once against the Eagles. In my prediction video, I said this is the year we beat Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field because both last year and the year before, Saquon single-handedly beat the Eagles for us, but Pat Shurmur pulled them out the game somehow and then, you know, stopped running the ball and all of a sudden we collapsed. It wasn't all of a sudden. The reason we collapsed in those games is because Saquon got the ball a total of like 3 times in both games.
I heard,
you know, in the second half.
Did I hear in your video a little bit of a conspiracy theory that Pat Shurmur did that because he used to coach with the Eagles?
I was just throwing that out there as a joke, but I mean, maybe he was on the Eagles coaching staff.
I don't think you throw away the contract he had to help a former team, but I could be wrong.
Who knows, man? But yeah, like you look at those games in the first half, we were up like 19-3 in one of them or something crazy like that. The other one we were up double digits also, and it's all because we ran the ball on the ground like madmen, and then it just disappeared in the second half, and the Giants didn't win.
Yeah.
So I think that doesn't happen this year, and we stick to it because of the new coaching staff, because of Jason Garrett offense and all that. And so we got 1 win out of the Eagles, and that's 4 wins right there.
Mm-hmm.
5th one against Dallas. I don't think Dallas is sweeping us again this year, just like the Eagles, but I'm not sure if it's going to be away or at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm not sure about. Because if it's away, I think the away game is the one we have first. Dallas starts off slow, we could catch them off guard. If it's at home, Dallas collapsed towards the end of the year like they did last year, and we catch them off guard. It's going to be either one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then, of course, the Bengals, which we just spoke about. And I think I had a surprise win against one of these teams. I'm trying to remember the schedule from my head right now for the 7th one. It's not coming to my mind. But there's a 7th win in there somewhere. It's not against the Bucks. Browns. Yep,
I was going to say Browns
one.
or Cardinals would have to be it.
It's Browns. It's Browns. I think we're going to beat the Browns. I just think the Giants have too much pride riding on this game to lose to the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and pride is a powerful thing. And we have it at home. And I think we're going to be a better coach team. I just think it all falls into play for us. The only thing the Browns have over us is names, but that failed them last year. I think it's going to fail them again this year. We catch them off guard. We won't even catch them off guard. I think we'll just beat them. That's 7 wins right there. And if we go 8-8, it's going to be against the Cardinals. So, yeah, those are like my games that I think for sure the Giants could win.
And I think the Giants win the Cardinals game because it's a West Coast team. Now, I know they're not completely West Coast, but Arizona's basically West Coast. Coming over to play an East Coast team, it's in Giants Stadium. And they don't West Coast teams historically struggle playing against the East Coast, just like East Coast teams historically struggle playing against the West Coast. It's a big time change. That's a big travel. So I think that, and it's a 1:00 game. So for Arizona, I'm pretty sure they're on Pacific time, which means that game is like playing at 10 a.m. for them. And I traveled out to California last year for work. I was out there for 5 days. I did not adjust in 5 days. I found myself going into the office at 4 or 5 in the morning because I just could not sleep in. Like I'm used to getting up at like 6:30, going into work at 8. I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I found myself going in at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and
Damn.
leaving early. I was like asking my boss out there, like, "Hey, you got anything you need me to do?" I was like, "No." I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna go." And I was in bed by 8, 9 o'clock. So it's not easy to adjust.
It's definitely not easy, and it's a factor, but I think Arizona could very much counter that by just probably coming over a day earlier, which is what I think they did last year. And the points you brought up are the points I brought up when we faced the Cardinals last year. I'm like, we shouldn't lose this game. We're evenly matched teams. Arizona's at the disadvantage here coming to the Giants, time zone and all that, and then we end up losing the game. Now, of course, in that Cardinals game, the reason we lost, in my opinion, is because Pat Shermer was at the height of being an imbecile and just showing his incompetence of a coach. And I don't think, like I said, that's not happening this year. We have a much better coaching staff. I think Joe Judge has the potential to be a better coach than Pat Shermer. And I don't think that's going to happen. But I have to keep in mind the reason I'm on the fence is that last year we were kind of even teams, and they still won by running through our defense. Not sure how the defense is going to be, but they improved, in my opinion, a bit more than the Giants did in the offseason, especially through the draft. I think the Cardinals had a very underrated draft. They ignored the offensive line a little bit too much for my tastes, but I think that needs to be taken into account. So I'm kind of on the fence about that game.
Yeah, I mean those are good points, and we'll see. The Giants aren't going to let Chase Edmonds or Kenyon Drake, but Chase Edmonds last year ran for 126 yards against us in that game. It's not going to happen again. But we'll see. And like I said, I'm probably a little high on the Giants. I like their coaching. I like Jason Garrett. I like Daniel Jones to take the next step. The knock that could come against is that they have new coaching staff and a young quarterback, and how is that going to gel?
And a weird offseason.
Yeah. So, and I was listening to your video, and I think I have to keep tempering my expectations because they are probably a season or two away from making the steps I believe that they're going to make. But
I'll tell you what, Dan, and this is a way too early bold prediction. I think Giants are going to be Super Bowl 56 in Super Bowl 56. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to win it, but I really do think we're a year away. And then when we hit that stride, I think we're going to make it to 56. Way too early. It's like 2 years away, but I really do think that we're I think we're right there. I think this is the year, everybody gets used to each other, take a little step forward in terms of just winning into their mentality. And I think next year we're definitely in the playoffs, and I could see us going to the 56.
I think that's possible if a couple things happen. I think Slayton has to prove he's the number one, kind of pull away, prove he's that number one receiver, because right now we don't have that number one threat, and I don't think Golden Tate can be it, even though he had a pretty good season when he was on the field. And I like Shepard. I'm a huge Shepard fan, but Shepard's a slot receiver. And in order to win Super Bowls, you have to have someone who can take the top off the defense. 2011, it was Victor Cruz. 2008, it was Plexico Burress. If Slayton can become that guy, I mean, it's possible. Daniel Jones looked really good. And I think, I did a lot of research when I was statting out a little bit and researching the Giants offense for my fantasy vid with Real Deal Fantasy. Shameless plug right there if you guys want to check it out. But and what I found is historically they talk about the sophomore slump, for quarterbacks, but unless you have a very good season, you actually tend to improve the second year. Daniel Jones had a slightly above average season. You look at his QBR and stuff, he falls into the area where he should improve based on history. They went back
based on recent years, just like the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, but Harvard did a thing where they went back for quite a bit of time, and they found that 44 of the 55 that they looked at improved. So,
Oh yeah, the I know exactly what you're talking about because I looked at that for my DJ will have a breakout year video. The reason I didn't use it though is because in my mind I was like, it's important obviously to know the context and the history behind this, situation that we're talking about. But I'm like, the offense in the NFL kind of changes year to year, so I feel like that was maybe a little too big of a sample, if that makes any sense, which is
mhm.
kind of weird to say because in probability and statistics, I don't think there is such a thing as too big of a sample. But just because the way offenses change year to year, I was like, let me kind of temper it to maybe the past decade or so. And definitely the past decade, it still supports that DJ
Yeah.
should make a leap forward.
And like you're saying, usually statistically you want to go as far back as possible, get as much data, but you have to, you're right, the NFL has changed. It is more of a passing league. Guys are coming out of college with more running more of a passing college offense too. You don't see the wishbone or the what is read option and stuff like that. That's not in college as much. You're seeing the spread offense. You're seeing um, the
Really, the
West
West Coast
Coast
style, yeah.
offense. Yep, you're seeing that spread. You're seeing that West Coast, and so they're coming in. They're coming in prepared to be NFL quarterbacks. They're not coming in
Is
handing
the
the
way they're
ball off
made now.
30 times. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds weird to say that, but it is the way that these guys are made to be now. And
So they
and
don't need
like
to sit as long.
exactly, that's another thing I talked about. I'm like, although I hate the fact that QBs don't sit as much as they should, I still think that a rookie quarterback should sit like at least a year. No matter what, it could only do good for you. But I completely understand why they don't, because they don't need to anymore, and that's
Yeah.
been shown in like let's go back to 2016, Wentz, Dak, Goff. You could say
Mm-hmm.
what you want about all three, but they've had relatively successful careers so far, and I don't think either of them sat. You know.
No.
Then 2017, obviously Mahomes is the big name. Watson came in before Mahomes had an immediate impact before he went down with the injury. Trubisky is the odd man out. Maybe there's a quarterback that I'm forgetting about in the 2017 draft, but those are like your three top guys. 2018, we had the massive QB class: Baker, Allen, Rosen, uh, Jackson, MVP.
Jackson.
A perfect
Yep.
example of somebody that had an okay rookie year, was kind of really carried by the defense, came in, had a stellar sophomore year. It's just you keep going, and it's like the examples are there.
Yep. You left out Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah, well, Sam Darnold, yes. I'm still not sure what's happening with him.
Nobody's sure what's happening with him. And I mean those are all very, very good points. And I think they point to the Giants just improving. Like I said, the only question, anytime you change coaches, it's a little nerve wracking. So I think we're both on the thing that Daniel Jones is going to improve a little bit. I
Hmm.
statted him out at, a little over 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns in 16 games. Interceptions going up a little bit to 15 from 12, but he's playing 16 games.
He's
And
throwing a
then
lot more.
and then I think his fumbles dropped drastically because we had the worst tackles in the NFL last
Oh,
year.
before we get into that, because I want to get into that, I do want to talk about the wide receivers a bit more. We kind of touched on it, but never got into it.
Yep. Okay. Go right ahead.
So, like, I agree with what you said. We need a number one, whether it's Slayton that comes out or we get somebody in free agency, we get somebody via trade. Maybe there's a stud that we get in the first or second round in the upcoming draft. Who knows? But you're completely right. I do think that our wide receiver core is good enough as of right now. But once again, going back to history, it kind of shows that you need somebody to differentiate themselves from the rest of the bunch in order to make it to that next step. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been said, like, we have a good wide receiving core. Slayton, Shepard, Tate, they're good. They're good enough to make it to the playoffs. I don't know if they're good enough to carry us farther than that, though. They're good enough to carry us to a winning season, I should say. I just don't know if they're good enough to carry us farther than that. You definitely need somebody to take the top off. So Slayton could be the one if he takes a step forward. We signed a couple undrafted guys. We know the Giants' history with undrafted wide receivers. Maybe one of them steps up.
Yep.
I've seen a couple scenarios which at first I thought were crazy, but then I thought about it a little bit more and I started really entertaining it, which is like trading Shepard for a speedster, like maybe trading Shepard for a Godwin or a Evans, obviously involving picks in there. And I would At first, I thought it was crazy, but then I continued to think about it. I'm like, it would make sense. We still have our slot receiver in Tate, who I think has a good 3 years left in him, and then we'll have two really good outside guys. It's like maybe send Tate somewhere and get a pick back, and maybe somebody like an Emmanuel Sanders. When you look at it, I
Hmm.
think Tate is a better player now than Sanders is. But the way Sanders is going to be used would be more valuable than the way Tate is used. Scenarios like that, we definitely need somebody to take the top off.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at the last few winners, and everybody's had it. Going back to the Eagles, they had Alshon Jeffries. The Patriots, they when they won it both years, they had Julian Edelman. Obviously, the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. So every team that's won the Super Bowl the last few years, because of the way teams play now, has had a receiver that can take the top off.
And like we could be like, I think we both know we could be wrong. Like maybe the way Judge runs it, we won't need it. You know?
But there's always exception to the rule. I mean, everyone says you need a true quarterback to win the Super Bowl, but the Eagles won it with Nick Foles.
Hmm.
Before that, go back, the Ravens won it with Trent Dilfer and cut him. So in a Super Bowl,
There's
I
always
try to
exceptions. Yeah.
forget. Yeah, but more often than not, you know, there's some big things that you need. Everyone talks about it. You need a good offensive line. You usually need something that you're exceptional at defense, whether it be
Which,
the
speaking of
secondary
the offensive
or
line,
the
we could
lineman.
definitely switch into that now.
Yeah, let's switch into that. So my first question is, who do you think the Giants play at center?
As of right now, I'll tell you who I want them to play at center. I want them to play Shane Lemieux at center because I would rather him over Spencer Pulley because I think Calapio is no longer on the team. And
Yep,
Pulley,
he's no longer there. Yep.
and Pulley, I always thought Pulley was better than Jalapio, but Pulley isn't exactly a starting caliber center in my opinion. He's like right there. He's like the perfect backup that you could bring in for 4 or 5 games, but I don't think he's a 16 game material type of guy. And then who do we have behind him? We got Shane Lemieux, and then there's talks about Nick Gates. No matter how
Yep.
good Nick Gates may or may not be, it's always a struggle to switch from the outside to the very inside and vice versa from the very inside to the outside tackle the center. I think that's going to be a little bit too much of a big shift for him to adapt immediately. When you already got a guy like Shane Lemieux, who was one of the top guards coming out, and I will say guards, one of the top guards coming out of the draft. We got him in the fifth, which was considered a steal. He's a complete mauler. And before the draft, he's been practicing at center because he knows teams have been looking for him to switch to center for a while now. So he's already been practicing that center a little bit. He's already the top of his position as a guard. I think it's definitely less of a shift from tackle to center than from guard to center. I would want to see how he performs there.
Well, and that's my big question, because I look at the Giants' offensive line, and we finished in the middle of the road despite having the worst tackles. And I keep thinking, I'm like, we've got to have a top half of the league line this year. I really think we're going to. I love Andrew Thomas. I think Matt Pert could be helpful. But the question becomes center. And we'll see what happens with Shane Lemieux, because like you, I think Spencer Pulley he's not terrible. It's not like we're going to put Spencer Pulley in there and he's going to be the Eric Flowers of centers.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a huge fan.
But I don't trust him for 16 games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it's also hard to make that adjustment, Shane Lemieux to center. So we'll see. It's
Another
it's a
thing that
different
could happen
position.
that literally just popped into my head. Right now, our best offensive lineman, period, is Kevin Zeitler, and I think it's right now it's by far. Definitely Andrew Thomas is going to get to his level soon, but right now it's Kevin Zeitler. Just popped into my head. If they think about shifting Lemieux to center, then who wants to say they don't think about shifting a seasoned veteran who's seen it all in the NFL, Kevin Zeitler to center, and put Lemieux out there at guard where he's used to for his rookie year? Then maybe next year they switch back or something, or keep Zeitler there for the remainder of his contract and draft a center whenever Zeitler's off the team. That's something that could happen too.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. And I mean, Kevin Zeiler is really good. A lot of people put a lot of him leaving the Browns on why Baker Mayfield took a step back.
Hmm. It's funny.
Because
He's
he was
probably the
seeing
most
pressure up the
underrated player
middle.
on our team, but Giants fans and people that look at the Giants don't realize that. But when they look at the Browns, it's exactly what you said. They're like, Zeitler is gone, man. That offensive line took a hit. That's why the offensive line was bad last year. They look at the Giants, not a peep about Zeitler.
It's because the Giants had a lot more problems. Offensive line only ever get noticed when they're really good or really bad.
Hmm.
Average offensive lines, no one talks about them. So if you're an offensive lineman who's doing pretty good on a run-of-the-mill offensive line, nobody's talking about you. If you're doing pretty good on a great offensive line, people are talking about you. If you're doing pretty good on a horrible offensive line, people are like, you're the only reason why the quarterback's not sacked every single time.
That's true. That's true.
So I think if we can get one of those guys to come in and play center well, I think it makes a huge thing on Daniel Jones's fumbles. And I think he actually playing in 16 games, throwing the ball more with a little bit of uptick in interceptions just because we're opening up the full playbook to him. He still has less turnovers because if we go up 2 or 3 interceptions, but he drops down 4 or 5 fumbles, going from like 6 to 2 or 1, he's got less total turnovers. I think he's got more yards, more touchdowns. I just really think that this Giants team, like the parity in the NFL that happens every year, changes from 4-12 bottom feeder to next year everybody talking about, can the Giants take that next step? Can they be the Ravens who showed some potential at the end of 2018, with Lamar Jackson finally getting in, and then all of a sudden they come in the next year, or the 49ers, one of those teams that's showing potential that takes that next step.
100%. And I'll tell you what, right now, no matter what record we go next year, I completely believe that we're going to be in talks just because of the fact that we're going to surprise people. I don't think people realize just how much the offensive line has been addressed, because it's what you said. We were not exactly bottom of the league last year. We were more so in that 15 to 20-ish range. And we got a franchise left tackle in Andrew Thomas. And you know me, I love Andrew Thomas. He was my favorite tackle out of all the class. We got a franchise left tackle in him, so we could send Solar over to the right side. We already have 2 established guards. All that's really left to address is the center position, where that's the only potential person we have right now. We have a potential person in Shane Lemieux, but you got 4 good offensive linemen out of the 5. You're gonna be one of the better offensive lines in the game. Helps Daniel Jones with his fumbles, and like we said, he's taking a step forward. That alone, the fact that he's taking a step forward alone is gonna help him out with his fumbles.
And they were 15 to 20 range with the worst tackles. They had the 32nd ranked tackles. They gave up their tackles. I had it here somewhere, and it gave up the most pressure of any. Yeah, we gave up 97 pressures from the tackles, which was the most in the league.
Jesus, I didn't even know that. Can you send that to me, by the way? That's going to be a really interesting stat I could pull up in a couple of my videos.
I will tweet I'll send a Twitter message to you after this with the PFF rankings.
Because I didn't even know that. That's amazing. That's actually amazing.
So that's why I think right away we improved drastically. I think Slayton and Daniel Jones take the next step, and then the missing piece on the offensive side. And I'm sitting here and I'm wondering if I even want to say it, because I'm afraid if I say it out loud, it's going to curse it. Jason Garrett loves his tight ends. Jason Witten was a god in Dallas for years. He's going to go down as one of the top 5 tight ends of all time, probably. And
I'd say top 10, but there's definitely an argument to be made for top 5.
I said probably, so I know people are going to argue, but nobody's going to be like, I don't feel like if I said Jason Witten's the number 5 tight end, anyone's going to look at me like I don't know anything about football. Like, you know, it's not like I'm not standing here screaming. I'm trying to think of some young tight end who's looking okay. I'm not like sitting here and saying Dallas Goedert is going to finish as one of the
Dallas
best tight
Goedert
ends of
is
all time.
today's Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, I'm not stating that. So if he can stay healthy, I think all of a sudden we've got an unbelievable offense, and our defense was 23rd in yards per game.
Before we get to the defense, though, here's the thing, though, right? Yeah. Do we need a tight end, right? I know. Ooh.
No, Caden Smith will be great if he goes down.
Do we need Evan Ingram? I'm saying, do we even need a tight end? Like, let's look at when Jason Garrett was actually the offensive coordinator for Dallas. Like, it was a very short time from 07 to 10, right? In that period, the passing went to one Terrell Owens, to their wide receivers. That I think people do forget that. And also, before Witten, I think, handed over play calling to his actual offensive coordinator. I can't remember what year. Maybe it was 17 or something like that. Who was the big wide receiver in Dallas? Dez Bryant. I do think that it's kind of lost that a big body wide receiver is also really important to it. So if we have a big body wide receiver, we don't necessarily need a tight end. And I'm especially looking at that 2007 season where they were the number 2 ranked offense behind Randy Moss and Tom Brady. It was Terrell Owens and Tony Romo. The tight end was definitely used, but not as a big extent as Jason Witten was in, say, like the past 6 years or so, right? So I'm like, do we even need a tight end? Just a question to put out there. I don't even know the answer myself.
Yeah, maybe we don't, because we got the depth at receiver. We've got an absolute freak at running back, playmaker. Mm-hmm. So maybe we don't. So the last thing I just wanted to hit up before we probably call this a day is the Giants' defense last year was bad, really bad.
There's no way around it. It was terrible.
But primarily it was their secondary, and I think we addressed that in the offseason and in the draft a lot. I mean, I don't think the Giants are going to come in. They were 23rd in yards per game and 27th passing.
The thing is, though, right, it felt worse than that.
Oh, it was so because it was so bad. I think what bothered me the most was guys would be in position. We just couldn't tackle.
Yeah, that was one of the things I spoke about so much in like my draft prep videos. I'm like, no matter what happens, just take somebody that could tackle if we go on the defensive side, because this team, there's only like one person on it that could tackle. It was crazy how much just fundamentals were missing from it.
I felt bad for the defensive coordinator because at the NFL level, I don't think your job is to teach guys to tackle.
That is true.
I think these guys should already know how to do it.
But at the same time, right, like if your guys don't know how to tackle, I mean, who else is going to teach them?
True. And I just felt like, Patrick Graham is our defensive coordinator this year. I'm trying to remember. Who did we have last year defensive coordinator?
Betcher.
I don't think he was putting us in bad positions. I think we just couldn't tackle. Straight up, like it was just bad. But that's an argument we can have at another time because you might disagree with me.
No, I think it's a mixture of both. We couldn't tackle, and I do think for whatever reason it was, the entire coaching staff last year, in my opinion, just took a major step back because the team looked so unprepared on the field. They did not look that bad in 2018, the coaching staff's first year. 2019 last year, it's clear to me that they took a step back somehow. Something happened, and the team always looked unprepared on the field. So it was like a mixture of both.
I think that they kind of packed it in. I felt that Pat Shurmur really packed it in during the season.
But if he did, he packed it in really early. Because that Cardinals game was, week 6? And I think, like I said, that was the height of incompetence of that coaching staff, that Cardinals game. Or maybe even the Vikings game, week 5.
It seemed to me like he put in Daniel Jones after we lost the first couple of games, and Daniel Jones breathed some life into them. And then we lost to the Vikings and we lost to the Patriots, and he just kind of was like, and Daniel Jones came back to earth, and all of a sudden Pat Shurmur was like, I don't think I can save my job, so I don't care anymore.
That's probably exactly what happened.
because like we come out and it was like, all right, we struggled, we lose the first 2 games, we put in a new quarterback, he looks good, he looks competent, then he comes back to earth after 2 very good games, and when he came back to earth,
When he became a rookie again,
Shurmur was like,
Shermer had to do his job, and
yeah,
he's
Pat
like, "Oh, I
Shurmur was
can't
like,
do it."
yeah, he's like, I'm done. Like I can't coach well enough to overcome some of the deficits we have. So I'm just going to start preparing for some coordinator interviews next year and forget
Which
about.
is funny because as a coordinator, I think he's going to do great in Denver. I think Drew Lock is going to have an amazing year next year. But that's not a conversation for now. Right now,
No, no. So, but what I just wanted to hit up real quick, and then I'm going to have to hop off here, is I think that though the defense isn't going to drastically improve, I think we shored up some things in that secondary, and we have a young secondary. I think we could go from 27th in passing to 20th, 19th, and really truly be right on the edge of breaking even into that top half, because we've got some very good young talent in Xavier McKinney, and getting James Badbury to come over was great. And we got some young corners that looked very good last season.
I agree.
At the end
It's
of the
crazy.
season.
Before the draft, right? You know, just before the offseason, secondary was our by far the worst part of the defense. Now it's probably the most underrated part of the defense, and I'm not saying best yet because they haven't played on the field together yet. But don't be surprised if the secondary next year turns out to be the best part of the defense. Like I did the vid on how the Patriots way is now the Giants way on defense, because the way the Patriots build their defense is back to front. They start at their secondary. They make the secondary the focus of their defense, and the pass rush is the I guess the supporting cast. That's what the Giants did. We have so many guys back there with crazy potential. James Bradbury, an already proven corner who's now in his prime, just entering his prime. DeAndre Baker, who I expect to take a step forward next year because he was misused in the defense last year. Darnay Holmes or Julian Love, I think, is going to be our slot cornerback, or Grant Haley. 3 guys with potential, especially Darnay Holmes coming out, was considered the smartest guy in the draft. And, considered he definitely was drafted where he was supposed to be drafted in the 4th round. I think he has a lot of potential. If he doesn't, we got Julian Love, somebody last year that was considered one of the best slot corners. And then the safeties, I think we're set with Xavier McKinney and Jabril Peppers. That defense has so many bodies in there that it's going to be crazy if none of them work out. You know what I mean?
And the other thing I love about it too is I think that we've got some potential there. So our secondary is now drastically improved. Our defensive line isn't bad, though we don't have the talent to really get at the quarterback. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, all right, our safety's really good, Jabril Peppers and Xavier McKinney. And then we're going to play around with Love, Haley, Ballentine, Baker, and whichever 1 or 2 of those guys that doesn't quite live up to the potential that we think they got, doesn't quite click, we can trade them for picks next year. I think you could easily get a mid-round pick for some of these guys, or even a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick for somebody like
definitely.
Ballentine,
I was thinking that the moment we took like 2 other corners in this year's draft, I'm like, Ballentine, Beal, and like Haley are probably going to be gone from the Giants.
And then we take those and we can shore up the defensive ends. We draft some defensive ends next year. And that's why I think we're a year away. Gettleman surprised me. I have not been a big Gettleman fan historically. I loved what he did this offseason, what he did this draft. I think the Giants take the step forward, and then I hope we turn some of these excess talent, because I think we got a lot of guys who are good enough to be number 2, 3 corners on teams in the league battling it out here. And we turn them into some mid-round draft picks, and we go and we throw some darts at the defensive line.
Outside linebacker, just pass rush in general.
Yeah. That, I guess what I should be calling it is an edge rusher, because if we're running the 3-4, that's more of an outside linebacker. and just the way the NFL works right now, the edge rusher is a position in and of itself. The guy who can play defensive end or outside linebacker, like your Vaughn
Khalil
Millers.
Mack, guys like that.
Yep, Khalil Mack's a great example. So that's how I feel. I'm really excited for the season. I can't wait for it to start. I'm happy that the UFC was able to get off without a hitch. I heard NBA is opening up their practice facilities. Major League Baseball's looking at July. It just all signs are pointing to sports in the next month or two, which has got me so
For
excited.
sure. And everything you just said, I can say it better myself. Giants, I do think they're a year away. I feel like this is going to be a great year for us. And then in general for sports, I don't see a way that the NFL season is really delayed unless training camp can happen. Because, training camp is really important. Unless that is somehow prevented, then I think everything's going to go according to schedule, whether it's with fans, without fans. And I think football is going to be here in fall.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And I think it's probably going to be without fans, but I feel like players, fans, just be quiet about it. It's much better to be safe than sorry. Like, so you can't go to a couple of games. The money's still going to be there. The advertising's still going to be there. People are still going to buy the merchandise. And next year is just going to be that much more exciting to go down and get to see a game. All right, so I'm going to do my outro again. Once again, smash the like button, subscribe, comment. I don't even care if your comment is that we're a bunch of idiots and you
You're
disagree.
still commenting, man. Yeah.
Just comment. Yeah, comment. Let me know what you think. Everybody who watches this video, tell me, what are the Giants going to be? They're going to be 0-16. They're going to be 16-0. They're going to be 8-8.
And make sure you subscribe to Dan. Make sure you check out his blog, Twitter page, best fantasy football site out there, guys.
And also make sure that you click, I'm going to have all of them in there. You click on the links over to to the hub, and get over there and follow all of his stuff. He's got the best Giants stuff out there. It's not even close. So
thank you once again, Dan, man. This was really good.
Yep.
Definitely I think this is a bit longer than what we usually do. I'm not sure, but we covered a pretty good amount of topics.
Yeah, we did. Thank you again for coming on. I love doing this with you, and I will talk to you soon.